for a 5-day stopover. With over 4,500 crew members and 75 aircraft on board, the world's largest and most advanced aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, 5 aircraft on board. The visit highlights Franco-American ties as NATO defense talks ramp up across Europe.
Imagine a floating city with more people than a small town, powered not by fuel tanks but by 2 nuclear reactors that can run for 20 years without refueling. This isn't science fiction. It's the reality of a U.S. Navy supercarrier. But here's the question. In an age of hypersonic missiles and drone swarms, can this massive city at sea still survive the wars of tomorrow? Or is it already on the edge of obsolescence? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. A ship that can outrun submarines and power an entire city? But can it dodge a missile moving at 15 times the speed of sound? That's the nightmare facing the crews who live aboard America's most advanced carriers.
And it's a Ford.
Well, sort of. It's the Navy's new supercarrier, which is being named today for the late President Gerald R. Ford.
This of transportation anywhere. It measures 1/5 of a mile long with well over 1 million horsepower and cost almost $13 billion.
Well, good morning, Anthony and Vanita. You can see it behind me, the massive technological marvel, the Gerald R. Ford.
On the surface, these massive floating fortresses look untouchable. A $13 billion wall of steel bristling with aircraft and defended by the most advanced radar on the planet. Yet in reality, the bigger and more valuable the ship, the more it stands out as a target. Every hour at sea, it carries not only firepower, but the weight of its own vulnerability. The rise of hypersonic missiles has shifted the balance. Moving so fast that the air around them turns to plasma, these weapons can close in on a target before radar operators have even finished reacting. If one finds its mark, even a single hit threatens an entire crew of 5,000 sailors and the pride of the Navy's fleet. And while hypersonics grab the headlines, the cheaper threats might prove just as dangerous. Picture hundreds of small drones flying in from every angle, each one carrying explosives. Individually, they are insignificant, but together they can overwhelm defenses designed for larger, slower weapons. A billion-dollar warship could be tested by weapons costing only a fraction of that, making the economics of defense an even bigger headache than the technology itself.
Gerald R. Ford is the first in the next generation of nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. The name is a tribute to President Ford. To another dock near here, and tradition dictates that the first time a ship floats, that's when you christen it. How do you feel about this?
Well, one, he would be in shock because he never would have expected this.
Beneath the surface, the ocean hides its own dangers. Submarine-launched torpedoes prowl silently, waiting for the chance to strike from below, while mines laid across choke points can turn shipping lanes into traps. Real-world threats already exist. China's YJ-18 and Russia's Kalibr missiles have been designed with precisely these kinds of targets in mind. Each new development forces naval planners to ask how much time is left before traditional carriers become liabilities.
Daughter will christen the ship later this morning, not with French champagne, but with a bottle of American sparkling wine. Construction began 8 years ago. For many of the 5,000 shipbuilders, it's a labor of love.
Aircraft that we don't even know exist yet.
Captain John Meyer says many of the ship's upgrades are highly classified.
The Ford-class carrier was built as the answer to these doubts. A new model designed with systems intended to survive in this environment. But what makes it different enough to stand against the wars of tomorrow? Imagine a warship that doesn't just survive threats, but transforms them into opportunities for new kinds of warfare. That's the vision behind the Ford-class carrier. It is not a rehash of the designs that carried aircraft across the Pacific or into the Gulf. Instead, every system inside was built with future combat conditions in mind. Nuclear power, electromagnetic catapults, advanced radar, and the ability to integrate drones all combine to make it far more than just a bigger version of its predecessors.
About are dramatic improvements over current carriers. The tower, called the Island, has been moved farther back on the deck.
From 0 to 160.
The bridge will bristle with state-of-the-art communications and warfare technology. And electromagnetic energy instead of steam power will catapult planes into the wild blue yonder.
But the question remains, are these changes enough to offset the speed and intensity of the new threats circling overhead and lurking underwater? One of its most visible breakthroughs is EMALS, the Electromagnetic Aircraft Launch System. Where older carriers relied on steam catapults to throw fighters into the sky, EMALS uses stored electrical energy. This means faster launches, smoother acceleration, and the ability to handle lighter aircraft like drones alongside heavier fighters. The result is a 30% increase in sortie rates, more planes in the air, more often.
Accountability Office found technical design and construction challenges that have led to significant cost increases.
Right there, the captain's seat.
Absolutely do. That's a day I'm very much looking forward to. I really believe that sailors belong at sea.
They're addressing those challenges. Susan Ford Bales understands how important this ship will be for the defense of the nation.
That single detail changes the tempo of combat by keeping pressure on the enemy at a pace no steam-powered deck could match. The 2 nuclear reactors on board each generate 550 megawatts, enough power to keep the entire ship running and still leave energy available for the weapons of tomorrow. Unlike earlier carriers, the Ford can already channel this power into future systems, railguns that fire projectiles at incredible velocities, or lasers that burn through incoming drones and missiles. These aren't limited by magazines. They are limited only by how much power can be fed to them, and Ford can deliver. Alongside that comes the MQ-25 Stingray drone, an aerial tanker that extends the reach of fighters by hundreds of miles. For the first time, a carrier's planes can push further without waiting for vulnerable refueling aircraft to arrive from distant air bases. All of this still relies on a crew of thousands. Sailors not older than their early 20s operate control panels guiding multi-billion-dollar technology, all while living inside a floating steel city that functions as both home and battlefield. The Ford class isn't just evolution, it is a preparation for a new kind of naval war. But what does that mean for the very idea of carrier dominance in the decades ahead? The aircraft carrier today is more than a warship. It has become the stage where vulnerability and innovation meet head-on. Even a $13 billion fortress cannot hide from missiles that cross the horizon in seconds. Yet it also holds the power to spark the weapons of the future. Its survival depends less on steel armor and more on how quickly it adapts to threats that change by the year. So the question is yours now. Does the Ford class mark the beginning of a new era for naval power? Or are we witnessing the twilight of the carrier age?